In this video, I'm going to talk about creating your own customized ARM templates by using Visual Studio. Remember, you could almost do the same from using Visual Studio Code. When you're using Visual Studio for creating templates, there are a couple of requirements. The first one, and I'm talking about connecting to the most up-to-date information, is using Visual Studio 2015 Update 3 together with the latest version of the Azure.NET SDK. And then once your deployment station, development station, admin PC, whatever you want to call it, is ready with Visual Studio latest updates, and you can connect to Azure, then the process is pretty easy from here on. From within Visual Studio, it starts from building a new project, selecting cloud, and then selecting an Azure resource group. Within that wizard, you decide to go from a blank template, since we want to start an ARM template from scratch, and then editing the JSON file out of the JSON outline. But then it's nothing else than adding a required resource from an easy-to-use wizard, saving the JSON file and deploying it from Azure. Now, instead of talking about it, I'm just going to show you how easy it is by walking into the next demo and then creating a customized template. So here from within my Visual Studio environment, I'm going to create a new project, selecting cloud and selecting Azure resource group. As you've seen in the previous demo of Visual Studio already, I can select a Windows machine, a Linux machine, or any other resource here. For this demo, I'm going to start from a blank template. So what it does here from my Solution Explorer, I can see that it creates a PowerShell script, which allows me to actually deploy the Azure resource group, as well as the creation of an Azure deploy JSON file and an Azure deploy parameters JSON file. If I'm opening up my deploy JSON file or my parameter JSON file, it will automatically show me the JSON outline. If for any other reason you can't really see it in your environment, you can achieve the same by going to the View menu, selecting Other Windows, and then selecting JSON outlines. Now let me add a couple of resources to my JSON file. From within the JSON outline, I'm selecting Resources and then adding a new resource. I'm going to take a virtual machine deployment as an example, so I'm going to start with storage accounts, and I'm also going to give it a name, Packed Storage 1, confirming it here, and as you can see, it's actually building up my JSON file, adding everything that's required around settings for my specific Azure resources. And then let me do the same for building the Azure Resource Virtual Networks, which again will add everything related to virtual networks, and the last one is adding a resource virtual machine, which will be linked to the specific storage account and allowing me to add an additional subnet. All the info will be completed inside this Azure deploy JSON file. I also want to allow remote management of the virtual machine, as I already explained in the previous video. And this is made possible by adding a public IP address, VM1 public IP, for example, something like this, which is linked to a pre-configured network interface. And that's about all it takes on this level. Now let me go back to my JSON file and walking you through some details. So what it does, since I've created a storage account, is allowing me to select the storage location. It's recognizing my Windows machine name. It knows that it requires an admin user account and a password. And I also have to select the Windows operating system, since I selected the Windows template before, where it will also offer me only the Windows flavors from the pre-configured Azure images. The public IP address subnets that I created, all my resources are available. My virtual networks are being created here, the network interface card with a unique name, and obviously nothing blocks me from changing those default values to something more customized. But in the end, that's basically what it takes to deploy or create a JSON file from scratch. I will reuse this environment in the next demo, talking about PowerShell desired state configuration, so keep this info for now. This completes the first section, and continuing the next video, talking about automating Azure Virtual Machine deployment by using configuration management.